I have been deeply reflecting on my childhood recently, and a feeling of betrayal overcame me. I feel that I have betrayed and abandoned my inner child. As a kid, I was curious and open. I could spend the entire day in my room by myself and never get bored. In fact, I preferred playing alone in my imaginary world, limited there only by my fantasy. I never really cared about the toys themselves. It was more so about the story I could build using them. For me, it was not about the Lego castle set itself, but rather the narrative I could create of how the castle was being built by some migrating army from a faraway land and how a group of bandits were planning to raid it. I would assign roles, create personalities for each figurine, and develop character arcs for them. You get the picture. While I was introverted and preferred playing alone, I had no trouble befriending other kids. I was not defensive towards new people. Actually, that is how I made friends. I would be completely open to play whatever the other kid preferred to. I had a friend who liked bicycles, and so we would ride the entire day around the neighborhood. Another friend liked history, guns, and Call of Duty, so I also got into that. Some friends liked basketball, and I learned to play it as well. What I am trying to say is that I was completely open to experiencing another kid's world. In a comical sense, perhaps I was surer of myself and who I was back then than later in my teenage years. I was not fearful of losing myself in social contacts and relationships. That is why it did not bother me. That is the reason why I did not perceive it as negative, as somehow too agreeable or yielding to the other kids. I was completely sure of myself and exploring others' interests, adopting other roles of being, did not scare me whatsoever. Obviously, a natural lack of self consciousness also aided. While introverted, I was nevertheless quite expressive. I was not afraid to act naturally. I was not shy about my creativity or my inner world. I suppose a lot of this could be generalized to any stereotypical childhood, but is nonetheless personal and unique to me. And so, why the feeling of betrayal? I feel that for many years I have suppressed this essential part of me. It is grief that flows in when thinking of what my life could have been if I never let go of my inner child, if I never got defensive and concealed, if I did not betray being for acting, if I did not waste so many hours hiding from myself and the world, neurotically plunging myself in video games and playthroughs on YouTube. What would have happened if I dared to stay authentic? I betrayed that child. However, through experience, I learned firsthand that being authentic is not simple. For example, at around 11 years old, I was harshly bullied by older kids at school for having long hair. I think it was the first time I faced serious outside pressure to conform. I don't know why I had long hair, I just felt like growing it out. Experimenting. Why not? However, that is what is so dangerous about authenticity. It makes you vulnerable. Authenticity implies that you will not get along with everyone. Uniqueness is chaotic and unpredictable, therefore uncontrollable, thus potentially dangerous, requiring energy and attention every time it is interacted with, hence why most people naturally get defensive. On the other hand, interacting with an iPhone is the same whichever person, no matter how different, it belongs to. Even something as trivial as hair length left me exposed to the insecurity driven scythe of juvenile communist esque belligerence, all in the name of unconscious conformity. However, I do not blame them. Their reaction was innate. It was reasonable of them to be unhappy with having their categorization of the world interfered with, and they quickly put an end to it. We all have an ingrained wish to keep the surrounding world as low resolution as possible. to interact with representations of things rather than with each thing in itself. It is unfathomably easier and more productive. In essence, what I just described is the downside of socialization. It is commonly understood that one should mature and integrate themselves into society. One should adopt responsible and adult roles in life. That, at minimum, presupposes a compromise between productive maturation and your inner childish uniqueness. I am not making a case against this natural and necessary process for the sake of civilization. It is a shallow and self-centered case to make that we should remain hedonistic, impulsive, helpless, incompetent, and short-term oriented children. I am merely trying to shine attention to a part of my psyche, therefore our psyche, that I feel is readily ignored and suppressed, the inner child. The kid that I described at the beginning of this video is still a part of me. I still possess these traits. Recently, I have been trying to get back in touch with what I had suppressed, and I have experienced substantial relief and inner freedom. I see humans as creatures that strive for harmony and balance. I believe the same principle works for our psyche. Look, let us say that you have a picture frame. It is a beautiful, high quality, and expensive frame. Yet, if the frame has no picture in it, of what use is it? The frame, although useful, is most likely not unique, and many other people have bought it as well. However, it is the picture that makes the package one of a kind and harmonious at the same time. Well, the frame is your adopted role in society, and the picture is your inner child. One should go with the other. The psyche needs to be balanced and harmonious. It needs the child to complete the picture. Indeed, I invite all of you to embrace your inner child. Nietzsche does as well. Quote, "At bottom, every man knows perfectly well that he is a unique being, only once on this earth, and by no extraordinary chance will such a marvelously picturesque piece of diversity in unity as he is ever be put together a second time." And it is important to keep in mind that I am not talking about uniqueness as a trend. I do not mean conform to a unique crowd, which in itself is a contradiction. Unique and group is an oxymoron. Kierkegaard put it best, quote, "Wherever there is a crowd, there is untruth." What I encourage is that unduplicatable inner unique being, the unblemished and perfect chaos that we humans embody, untouched and uncorrupted by the plague of ideology or dogma. Play more if your circumstances allow it. The unique being lies inside you either way, and if you pressure and suppress it, then like a soda can, it will end up erupting and spilling everywhere. Of what use is that? Is it not better to pour it into a glass and at the time of your choosing? Whatever it is that you suppress back into the unconscious will find its way out in the most self-destructive and irrational ways possible. It is better to allow it to manifest in the conscious, thus disabling the uncontrollable explosion. Integrate the inner chaos along with the order of society. Quote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." Although my reflections obviously are not scientific, I feel the same need for balance applies for the struggle between rational, scientific, argument-based thought and that irrational, subjective side of you. People nowadays tend to disregard the intuitive and emotional, the part you cannot quite verbalize and formulate in a thought-out argument. There should be harmony between these poles. And so, at the same time, by inviting you to reflect on your inner child, I would like to invite you to reflect on that irrational and subjective side. I try to allow myself to feel, not only think, experience rather than only categorize and judge. That is what this channel is about. I inherently try to represent the intuitive and not the rational. By definition, that makes my content subjective, which is the most common complaint or criticism I receive, and fair enough. What in the realm of the abstract is not subjective? I encourage you to carefully spend more time gazing into the abyss of chaos. Along with the unbounded danger, there also awaits limitless potential. Quote, and if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. Happy maturing.